What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was summoned by a Succubus clan and crowned as their king? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. The village hidden in the leaves was the most beautiful village out of all the hidden villages. People were happy going about their daily lives, and children were happily at play. Well, not all of the children were happy. There are two specific children in the hidden leaf that were wishing for death, specifically their own deaths. And although they didn't know it, the two of them were going to set off a series of events that would lead the leaf villages to its ultimate and bloody demise. Naruto Uzumaki was the village pariah. The leaf village hated Naruto with a burning passion. As a child, Naruto was abused by damn near everyone in the whole village. Adults would glare and insult the boy while he walked down the streets, and the children of the village picked up on what the adults and their parents were doing and did the same. To everyone in the village, he is the stupid little kid that wasn't worth the space that he was taking up in the world. And to make things even worse is that Naruto never understood why any of this was happening to him. Over the years, Naruto would constantly try and make friends with any of the other children, but every time he would try, he would always be met with the same results. All of the other children would give him the usual, "Get lost, loser, no one wants a freak like you around." And on worse occasions, Naruto would just be walking through the village, and then out of nowhere a massive mob would chase throughout the village. Then when they would catch him, they would take whatever weapon they had and beat him within an inch of his life. Then just when things would take a turn for the worst, the Hokage of the village would step in and stop the mob from hurting the boy. The Hokage would take the boy to the hospital and get him treated. And every time Naruto would ask the old man the same question that he asks everyone, "Why?" And the aged Hokage would always give Naruto an emotionless look and tell him, "I am sorry, but it is not my place to say." After a few days, Naruto was let free from the hospital and went home, feeling worse than ever. Deep down inside, he knew that the old man was lying to him. It was this that made him feel all kind of emotions. The strongest of them all were anger and sadness. He was angry because of the fact that everyone hated him for no good reason. And sadness because the Hokage, the one person that he thought he could trust, refused to tell him the whole truth. He was convinced that everyone in the world hated him, so he went home and did the only thing in the world that truly made sense doing. Naruto is currently a 6-year-old and was trying to kill himself. Naruto was sitting on his bed in his dirty piece of crap apartment, running a rusty kunai across his wrists, blood pouring from the open wound. And after a few minutes of doing this, he was starting to feel a little dizzy. Watching as the blade cuts open his wrists and his blood drip down onto the floor, he eventually passes out, closing his eyes, happily accepting death's embrace. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw that he was in a damp sewer with torches lining the walls, lighting the way. "So is this what the underworld is like?" asked Naruto. "Not even close, boy," boomed a thundering voice. "Who said that?" said a startled Naruto. "Follow my voice and you'll see." So for the next few minutes, Naruto walked around the sewer until he stopped in front of a giant silver gate with a single piece of paper with the kanji for seal in the middle of it. Naruto looked around in confusion, wondering where exactly the voice he heard had come from. "Hello, is there anyone there?" shouted Naruto. Then suddenly heard thundering footsteps coming from behind the cage, then slowly a form starts to emerge from the darkness behind the bars of the gate. Standing in front of Naruto was a colossal fox with 9 tails swishing behind it. Naruto stared at the beast in awe and said, "Don't be afraid of me, boy," said the giant fox in a calm voice. "I have experienced too much in my life to be afraid," said Naruto in a confident manner. "Who are you? Where are we?" he continued in a small, demanding voice. The great fox chuckled at the tone of voice the child had and said, "To you humans, I am Kyuubi, the 9-tailed fox lord. But you may call me Kurama." "No, that can't possibly be true. The 9-tailed fox died 6 years ago at the hands of the 4th Hokage. This village and its people, including that aged cage you admire so, lied to you. Listen to what I have to say and I will reveal to you the truth," said Kurama in a calm voice. Naruto, figuring that he had nothing to lose, decided to listen to what the facts had to say. "To answer the second question, we are currently in your mindscape. I brought your mind here so that my chakra can fix the damage that you tried to do to yourself." Naruto gave Kurama a confused look and said, Well, if this is my mindscape, then why are you here? I was sealed in here. The fox said blatantly. Seal? I don't understand, Naruto said in a shaken voice. So the nine-tailed fox decided to share his story with the child. For centuries demons have roamed the earth. Most of us want only to be left alone and not be bothered by the world and its problems. I unfortunately wasn't that lucky. 6 years ago, a man was able to track me down to the place I have hidden for decades. Who was the man? I couldn't see his face. I knew that he was a ninja from the one red swirling eye that he had. What did he want from you? Asked the curious 6-year-old. The man demanded that I give him my power. And when I heard his request, I scoffed at him and refused. He didn't like my answer and tried to take my powers by force. He charged at me with everything that he had, and I gladly met him with all that I had. After my power seemed too great for him to handle, he did something that I did not anticipate. He performed some kind of jutsu that put me under some kind of hypnosis. After that, he forced me to go and attack the Hidden Leaf Village. For a whole day I was forced to fight of every single ninja this village had, and I couldn't stop myself," said the fox in an angry and defeated manner. Naruto looked at the fox with a rather sad expression on his face and though, wow, so I am not the only one hurt for no good reason. Then near the end of the battle, a man riding on the back of a giant toad. You and the people of the Leaf Village called him the fourth Hokage. He stepped forward to confront me. He came at me with no weapon or any means to defend himself. He came only with a small infant in his arms. Naruto gave the fox a frightened look, afraid of what the fox was going to say next. Then the man started to do the hand seal and preformed a jutsu called the Reaper Death Seal, a jutsu that is meant to take the soul of both the user and the target. But instead of killing me, he made it so that the jutsu would bind my soul to another living soul. And since the jutsu takes the soul of the caster, then the only other thing that my soul could be bound to was me. I was the infant, wasn't I? Said Naruto in fear and sadness. The giant fox looks at the child and silently nods his head. Naruto was shell-shocked by what he had found out. He was so stunned that he couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet and fell down to his knees and just stares down at the ground. They knew, didn't they? The whole village, including the old man, knew, didn't they? They all lied to me, didn't they? He shouted in anger. Yes, I am sorry to have to say this to you, Naruto, but human can only see what their stupidity lets them see. When they look at you, they only see me and the pain I unwillingly caused them," said Kurama sadly at the memory of that night. The fox looked down at the boy and could see a few tears fall from his face. The fox was formulating a plan that would ensure that both he and the boy got what they wanted. Kurama looked down at Naruto and asked him a question that would change his life forever. Naruto, how would you like to make a deal? Scene change. The Hyuga clan. One of the most prestige clans in all of Konoha. They are one of the 8 ninja clans on the village council. The civilian and some of the other ninjas in the village treated the members of the Hyuga clan with respect. However, there was one member of the clan that was neither respected nor even liked for that matter. She was a little girl named Hinata Hyuga, the outcast of her clan. But she wasn't always that way. When she was around 3 years old, she started her training in the Hyuga fighting style called the Gentle Fist. Her mother Hitomi Hyuga, who was 9 months pregnant at the time, would give her daughter as much help and advice as she should give to her daughter. Hiyashi didn't bother to give his daughter that kind of support, saying that it would just weaken her. Hitomi loved Hinata unconditionally, and tried to protect her from Hiyashi and the rest of the Hyuga clan. She would have never wanted Hinata to know, but she took a lot of punishments from the Hyuga elders for her daughter because she loved her so much. Then one day, Hitomi went into labor and gave birth to a Hinata's sister Hanabi. But unfortunately, Hitomi experienced some complications during birth and died. The last words that Hitomi ever said to her daughter, "Be brave, my little sunshine, and please, don't grow up to be like the rest of the Hyuga clan." Ever since then, her father Hiyashi Hyuga became even more cold and distant to Hinata, and he would put her through a grueling training session where she would get pitted against her little sister. After every training session with her sister, her father would beat and belittle her because of her poor performance. The reason she did poorly was because she was too kind of a soul and didn't want to hurt her little sister. One of the worst thing was that Hanabi basked in the glory and praise that she got from her father. In fact, they were just in the middle of a training session right now. Hanabi was pressing the attack on her older sister, and she was relentless in her assault. always shifting her body around so she could hear you where you least expect it. Hinata had no choice but to go on the defensive, plus she didn't want to hurt her little sister. The two sisters traded blows for 5 minutes before Hanabi pulled a surprise move and gave a gentle fist strike to Hinata's leg, which caused her to trip and fall to the floor. Hinata found herself laying on her back with her sister standing over her ready to deliver the killing blow, signifying the end of the match. "Hinata!" shouted Hiyashi. Hinata slowly getting up to her feet and looking at her father with fear in her eyes. "Come here now," ordered Hiyashi. Slowly and fearfully Hinata walked over to where her father was standing and looked him in the eye. Hiyashi looked at his daughter with disgust and with all his strength slapped Hinata across her face. She fell down hard and slowly raised herself off the ground holding her cheek. "How did I ever come to raise such a weak and pathetic excuse for a daughter?" he said with a sneer. "Just go to your room, I don't want to see you for the rest of the day." Hinata walked quietly to her room and shut the door behind her. The minute the door was shut, she let the dams burst. She cried for what seemed like hours until eventually she fell asleep just before she slipped into unconsciousness, she silently though. "It's not fair. I wish that I didn't have to suffer I wish that everyone else would know the pain that they make me feel. What would you say if you could make that dream a reality?" said a mysterious feminine voice. Hinata suddenly jumped at the voice and started searching for the source of it. She noticed that she was no longer in her room anymore. She saw that she was inside some luscious, beautiful mansion. "Where am I?" thought Hinata. "Follow the sound of my voice and you will finally see the truth," said the sultry female voice. So for the next few minutes Hinata walked around the mansion looking for the voice that had drawn her here. Eventually she came to a red door. She just stood in front of the door not really sure of what she should do, until she heard a voice. "Well, are you going to come in or not?" That made Hinata jump a little, but she then stepped forward and opened the door. When she walked into the room, and when she did she noticed that she was in a big lavish bedroom. There were expensive-looking furniture. And the bed looked like it could hold 4 people in it. However, she noticed that there was already someone in bed. Hinata saw this gorgeous woman sitting on the bed in a very seductive pose. The woman that appeared to be in her late 20s, long black hair that reached to her mid-back, fairly tanned skin, piercing crimson red eyes, well-developed DDS, 2 bat wings coming out of her back and devil horns coming out of her forehead, wearing lingerie open cup-less bra, and a silk thong and nothing else. Hinata blushed and looked at the ground when she saw the woman. Then the woman looked at the girl and said, "Don't shy away from me, girl, especially not after coming all this way to see little old me." Hinata just stood there and said nothing, too embarrassed to even look at the woman in front of her. "Hinata, look at me when I speak to you," ordered the woman. Hinata reluctantly looked up at the woman with her beet-red face and asked, "How do you know how I am?" "Oh, I know everything there is to know about you, my dear." "But how do you know?" "I have felt and experienced all of the crap that you've gone through in your life. But before we do anything else, I believe that introductions are in order. I am Lilith, the Succubus Queen." Hinata stared at her for a second in confusion. So she figured that she would ask the obvious questions first. "What is a succubus?" "A succubus, my dear, is demon that gains their powers form." Although a bit embarrassed by the answer that she continued, "What is the place?" "This, child, is your mindscape. It is a visual representation of your mind." That response stirred the big question in Hinata. "If this is my mind, then why are you here? Allow me to explain and please don't interrupt me until I am done. You know how they say that hell is the birthplace of all demon kind. Well, it is true. I was born in the circle of lust. A little over 6 years ago your clan tried to make themselves stronger, used ancient jutsu to try and summoning a demon so that it would grant them power. They unintentionally summoned me and demanded that I give them power beyond belief. I refused to give them what they wanted and then they tried to take me by force. They underestimated my powers, and many of them didn't get to see the sun rise the next morning. But then something happened that I didn't expect. A man came forward and tried his luck against me. He fared rather well, but he was still no match for me. But I got careless and fell into a trap that he had set up. Using a variety of seals, they had trapped my soul in a container. A few days after they trapped me, they brought an unconscious woman to me. They had set her and me in the middle of a complex seal. Then they performed a jutsu that would fuse my essence to the woman. It worked, just not in the way that they were expecting. What they didn't know was that the woman was pregnant with a child, and instead of getting bonded to her I got bonded to the child in her. That child was me, interrupted Hinata. You mean, they tried to perform this ritual on my mother? Yes, child. Hinata couldn't believe what she was hearing right now. She was as shocked and as angry as she could be right now. She could really only think of one thing to say. Who was he? Who was the man that trapped you and did that to my mother? She asked with tears of anger welling in her eyes. HMPH, who else? Your father Hiyashi, the man that has been the cause of all of your pain ever since you were born. He though that since you had me sealed inside of you that maybe you would become strong, and gain the power that they hoped to get from me directly. But when you didn't grow up to be what he and the rest of your clan wanted, well you know the rest. It all made sense to her now. All of the hateful stares, all of the insults that her family gave her finally made sense now. Hinata fell down to her knees and cried out in anger at what her father did, and sadness at what happened to her mother. Then Lilith looked at Hinata and asked her a question that would change her life forever. Hinata, how would you like to make a deal? The next scene in this story is both conversation going on at the same time and they will overlap each other. What kind of a deal? Said Naruto. I offer you the solution to make your dreams come true. Said Lilith. What dream are you talking about? Said Hinata. Your fantasy about killing everyone in the village. Said Kyuubi. And don't even think about denying that haven't thought about spilling the blood everyone who has wronged you. Said Lilith. Just admit it, you love the idea of this damn village set ablaze. Kyuubi. The village is screaming in agony. Lilith. And you bathed in the blood of your enemies. Kyuubi. Admit it, screamed Lilith. Kyuubi. Naruto, Hinata thought about what they had just heard and after thinking about, and finally they looked up with a look of fury and determination in their eyes and said. You're right, said Naruto. Hinata. I do want to see them suffer. Naruto. I want them all to feel the pain that they caused me. Hinata. Then I make you this offer my dear. Lilith. I will make you my apprentice. Kyuubi. And I will teach you everything. Lilith. There is to know about being the ultimate killing machine. Kyuubi. Do we have a deal? Kyuubi. Lilith. Naruto. Hinata didn't even need to think about it long. You got a deal, said Naruto. Hinata. And with that the future of the Hidden Leaf Village was sealed. 7 years later, the sun was peeking over the horizon and bathing the Hidden Leaf Village with its morning light. The people of the village are just waking up and getting ready for their day. But there were two 13-year-olds in particular that stood out amongst them all. Naruto's apartment. Naruto had just woken up from a dream where he was covered in the blood of the villagers while sitting on top of a pile of their dead bodies. Time to get up, Naruto. Said Kyuubi. I know, master. It has been over the 8 years since Naruto had met Kurama the nine-tailed fox, and learned the truth about what this village has done to him and agreed to become the nine-tailed fox's apprentice. And in that time Naruto has grown up quite a bit. Kyuubi had put Naruto through a grueling training session. Every day for years Kurama would have Naruto do push-ups, sit-ups, running around the village and the forest outside the village, and lifting weights. After 7 years of doing all of Naruto had developed quite a physique for a 13-year-old, having almost no baby fat on him whatsoever, well-sculpted abs, and light muscles everywhere on his body. But the fox had taught Naruto more than just a few exercise routines. He had taught the boy everything he knew. He taught him how to fight, how to survive, how to preform hand seal, how to steal, how to preform fox-style ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu, trap setting. All in all, Kurama had taught Naruto how to think like a fox. Naruto had also decided that he will no longer take any crap from anyone anymore, and that if anyone tried anything against him, they were dead men. In short, Naruto had become total badass. Naruto slowly pulled the covers off and got out of bed. Once he was up, he went through his morning routine of push-ups, sit-ups, and finally going into the bathroom to take a shower. Afterwards he went into his kitchen to make himself breakfast. He looked at the calendar that he had hanging from the wall and remembered that the Ninja Academy was starting today. He remembered the day that the third Hokage told he would be attending. Flashback 6 months ago. Hiruzen Sarutobi was the current Hokage of Konoha. He had summoned Naruto to his office to tell him something. Naruto had just walked through the door to his office. Naruto, he walked into Sarutobi's office, looked at the old man with a look of anger and said, "What did you call me here for, old man?" he said with a hint of annoyance in his voice. Hiruzen had noticed that Naruto's attitude had changed throughout the years. He became more cold and serious about everything. It worried the aged Hokage to no end. But he put his thoughts aside, looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto, I have noticed that you are starting to grow up," said Sarutobi. "What's your point, old man?" said Naruto in a bored manner. Hiruzen noticed the attitude that was in Naruto's voice but continued, "Well, Naruto, my point is that you are starting to come of age. And I remember that a long time ago that you wanted to be a ninja of the Leaf Village. So I was able to pull a few stings and I have enrolled you into the Ninja Academy." Naruto looked at him and didn't say a word. The Hokage noticed Naruto's excitement, or lack thereof, and said, "What's wrong, Naruto? Aren't you excited about being able to become a ninja?" asked the Hokage. Naruto gave the old man a blank stare and said emotionlessly, "Yay, I guess so. But I thought it was your dream to become a ninja and one day the Hokage of the Leaf?" said the Hokage in a confused voice. "If that is all you have to say, then I'm leaving," Naruto said abruptly, then turned around and started walking out of the office. "Naruto," shouted Sarutobi, "what is wrong with you? For as long as I can remember you have always been this happy-go-lucky kid whose dream was to one day take my title as Hokage. Now you're this cold and distant person. What happened to you?" Naruto was walking towards the door while the Hokage said that. And right before he walked through the door he heard Sarutobi's last question and grew angry. "How dare you ask me what happened, when you know damn well what happened?" thought Naruto. But Naruto controlled his anger, looked back at the old man and simply said, "I grew up." Then he walked out of the Hokage's office. Then the Sarutobi just sat down in his chair and wondered what happened to the boy. "What happened to you, Naruto? Could this possibly be the fox's doing?" thought Sarutobi. The old man looked out the window of his office and looked down at the street. In the street he saw the retreating form of Naruto walk away. "I am going to have to keep my eye on that boy." Flashback ends. Naruto had just finished breakfast. Think about what the academy had to bring. In the end it won't matter. They will all die in the end. Naruto got dressed in black Anbu-style shirt and pants, and a black leather sleeveless trench coat that has a hood, reached to the ground and the kanji for blood on the back. Naruto also decided to take a few kunai and shuriken and hide them in his coat. With all of that done, Naruto exited his apartment, making sure that the traps that he had set in place to make sure that nobody would break in unless they want to lose a body part. When he was done he pulled up his hood and started walking through the village, ignoring all of the hateful glares that the villagers gave him while making his way to the academy. The Hyuga compound. Hinata had just woken up from her favorite dream where the village was set on fire and the villagers were screaming in agony. "Come on, Hinata, you don't want to be late for your first day at the academy, do you?" said Lilith. "I know, mistress." Over the last 7 years, Hinata has gone through a dramatic change. Being the apprentice of a succubus does have its advantages. She has completely lost the stutter that she uses to have. Her body had developed a great deal. Lilith's training regimen was painful and grueling. Every day she would have Hinata work her abs, arms, legs and everything. She had firm, slightly muscular abs, tight heart-shaped ass, full firm 36 DDS, and she had hardly any fat on her body at all. She had gotten out of her bed and went into her private bathroom and started to take a shower. After she had taken her shower, she walked out of her shower. She started putting on her cloths. Her wardrobe had taken on a new look. She wore a purple silk thong and bra. She put on a pair of short shorts that really showed off her legs and tight ass, a mesh tank that hugged her ass tightly, and wore her jacket unzipped to show off her impressive bust. But being Lilith's apprentice had more advantages than just looks. She had abandoned the Hyuga fighting style and had learned a whole new fighting style. She had also found out that she had a real talent for genjutsu, so Lilith taught her every genjutsu that she could think of. By the time Lilith got done with her, Hinata had turned in a chick that you didn't want to cross. After she had gotten done with her morning routine, she had gone downstairs to the kitchen to get something to eat. When she got to the dining room, she saw that breakfast has already been served and that her father and sister have already sat down and started eating. Over the many years that she has been training with Lilith, she has been hiding who the real Hinata is. But today she is going to stop the charade and show the world who she really is. Hinata glared at her 2 family members and started to ball her fists in anger. But she restrained herself from doing anything too rash. She walked through the room and silently sat down and started to eat the food before her. When Hiyashi saw his daughter and what she was wearing, he nearly choked on his food. "Hinata, what the hell do you think you are wearing?" Hiyashi shouted in anger. Hinata just ignored what her father had to say and just continued eating her breakfast. "Hinata, look at me when I talk to you," Hiyashi said while standing up from his seat. Hinata gave Hiyashi an angry stare and said, "What the fuck does it matter to you what I wear?" Taken back by what she said, Hiyashi looked at her with a look of rage. Then Hanabi stood up and said, "How dare you talk to father like that? Oh, shut up, you little shit. Before I come over there and pop your head like a zit," yelled Hinata. Hanabi recoiled in fear a little at what her sister just said to her. "Insolent little whore." Just as Hiyashi was about to hit her, Hinata with lightning-quick reflexes caught his hand and squeezed, causing him to wince a little in pain. Hinata just glared up at him and said, "Don't you dare touch me ever again." And with a single push she threw Hiyashi across the room and smashed into the wall. "Father!" Hanabi screamed in surprise. Hanabi immediately ran over to help her father. She looked over at her sister and noticed that she was just nonchalantly drinking her juice and said, "How could you do that, Hinata?" "It's easy, he tried to attack me, and I defended myself," said Hinata. Then Hiyashi got back up to his feet, looked at Hinata and screamed, "How dare you, you little bitch!" "Oh, just shut the hell up, you fucking prick," said Hinata. Hiyashi and Hanabi just stood with a shocked, stupid look on their faces. The both of them have never heard Hinata talk or seen her act like this before. Then Hinata, having finished breakfast, got up from the table and walked out the room, leaving her family with their shocked expressions on their face. She walked out of the Hyuga compound and made her way to the academy. Hiyashi stood up and watched as his daughter left and thought, what happened to her? It's like her personality completely turned around from what is used. And that strength, where did it come from? I am gonna have to keep a close eye on that girl. Konoha Ninja Academy. Naruto had just walked through the academy gateway and saw all of the parents dropping their children off. When the parents saw that Naruto had entered the academy, and when they did, they turned to their kids and said things like, "You see that boy, sweetheart, you stay away from. I can't believe that they let him enter the academy." Naruto heard a dozen other comments like that, and saw dozens of the families glaring at him and paid no attention to any of them and just went inside to go find his classroom. Hinata had just walked into the academy courtyard and just looked around at all of the kids that would be attending the academy, until one of the boys walked up behind her and said, "Hey there, hot stuff. What's a why little thing like you doing here?" said a boy wearing a gray hoodie, black ninja-style paints, and two red fangs painted on his face, one on each cheek, and there was a little white dog walking right next to him. Hinata looked at the guy and thought of a plan that would put this boy in his place. She turned around with a lustful look in her eyes and looked at the boy and said in a sultry voice, "Well, hey there, handsome, what's your name?" she said while stroking the boy's face. "Name's Kiba Inuzuka," he said with an air of confidence and pride. "Well, Kiba, I was wondering, do you know how to sing? Because there is nothing in this world that I love more than a man who can serenade me. Well, I have been known to be pretty musically gifted. Then why don't you show me your high note?" And with that, Hinata grabbed Kiba's manhood through his pants and squeezed his package with all her strength. And Kiba screamed so hard that it got everybody in the academy to turn and wondered what happened. Kiba fell down to the ground holding his manhood and howling in pain. Then Hinata just looked down and with anger in her eyes and said, "If you ever try anything like that with me or any other girl, then I'll castrate you myself." Every boy in the school learned really quickly to not mess with that chick. And with that, Hinata went inside to go find her classroom. Inside the academy, Naruto and Hinata were both looking for the classroom, paying attention to the classroom numbers and nothing else. They both stopped at room 234 and both reached for the door, and unintentionally both of their hands bumped into each other. They both pulled back from each other and then looked at each other. They both looked at each other expecting someone who would just be another annoyance. But then something happened. They both looked each other in the eye and saw a sense of familiarity. Like there was something that set them apart from the rest of the world. Then Naruto decided to be the one to break the ice. "Hi," he said, dumbfounded. "Hi," said Hinata, equally dumbfounded. "My name is Naruto. I'm Hinata." The two of them just stared at each other for a few minutes in awkward silence until Naruto asked, "Are you in the first year class too?" "Yes, I am." Then Naruto opened the door and they both walked in, and noticed that they were the only two in the classroom. They walked into the back of the classroom and took 2 seats next to each other. They sat there not saying anything for a minute. Then Hinata broke the silence saying, "So, I don't remember seeing you around the village," she said, thinking of nothing else. "Yay, this village and its people aren't too crazy about me. It works out though, because I'm not too crazy about them," he said with a hint of anger in his voice. Hinata looked at him with sympathy and said, "I guess I can't blame you. Some of the villager and the clans can be giant fucking assholes." Naruto took notice to what she said and gave a curious look at her. "It's funny you should say that," he said. "Why is it funny?" she said, giving a confused look. "Because you're part of a clan. I know what those eyes mean, you're a part of the Hyuga clan. Don't you dare compare me to the rest of that clan," she shouted in rage while jumping out of her seat. Naruto was taken aback by what just happened. He wasn't expecting the girl to react like that. Hinata calmed down, took a deep breath and calmed down. "I'm sorry. You don't understand. The Hyuga clan had wronged me in a way that you couldn't understand." "Oh, I don't," said Naruto. "Well, let's see. A great tragedy happened during your childhood, something that was out of your control, and yet somehow, for some stupid reason you wind up take the brunt of their abuse." Hinata looked in awe at what Naruto had just said. She was just so astonished that this boy, that she just met no more than 15 minutes ago, was able to recite her life to her. "How do you know so much about me?" she said in a whisper. Naruto just looked down at the ground and said, "I know because, my life was just the same." Hinata had a look of surprise on her face as he continued. "When I was young, this village did me wrong too. But I decided that I wasn't going to just lie back and take it anymore. I said that I would get stronger and show them all what I really am. Wow, I didn't think that there was anyone else in this whole world that understood how I felt. I'm glad to know that I was wrong," said Hinata with a little happiness in her voice. "Me too," said Naruto with an actual smile on his face. For the next hour as they waited for their class to start, the two teens talked, and for the first time in a very long time, they were actually happy. Then the rest of the class started to pour into the room, and the two of them just kept talking along. "Hey Hinata, how would like to come training with me after class lets out? Sounds like fun." Then the teacher came in and introduced himself. "Hello everyone, my name is Iruka Amino, and I will be your instructor for the next 3 years. I will be teaching you everything there is to know about being a ninja." And as he was talking, Naruto and Hinata were having their own private talks with their masters. "Naruto, Kyuubi. So you pick out a nice little girlfriend, Naruto," said Kyuubi. "She isn't my girlfriend. Calm down kid, it was just a joke." "Sorry master, it's just that, there is something different about this girl. It's like there's something about her that sets her apart from the other people in this village. I know what you're talking about, the air about is different from other people in the village." "Air? I was just talking about her in general." "Why, what do you mean?" "The air around this girl smells different from everyone else's, like she is giving off some kind of pheromone that seems familiar." Naruto sniffed the air, and he smelled something sweet like honey mixed with lavender. "You're right master, but what could that mean? I'm not entirely sure. Just keep an eye on that girl." "Hinata, Lilith. So Hinata, I see you got yourself a little hunk for a boyfriend." He isn't my boyfriend. "I know, but there is something about this boy that, interesting. I know he actually understands me?" "Yes, that is nice. But that isn't what I was talking." "What do you mean?" "This boy is radiating some kind of power that feels familiar somehow. Just be wary of this boy." Time skip. After a few hours of boredom later, and the academy had finally been let free. All of the children had gone to their parents and were heading home. However, Naruto and Hinata were both walking down the streets of Konoha heading for a special training ground that Naruto had frequently used. It was in the middle of the forest just outside the village walls. Then Naruto looked at Hinata and said, "So Hinata, how about you and me have a little sparring match?" "Alright, but I should warn you I like to play a little rough," she said in a seductive voice. "Good, cuz I like it rough." Naruto walked over to the other side of the training field, turned to Hinata and simply said, "Well then, shall we dance?" Naruto and Hinata just stared at each other with confident smiles on each of their faces. Then they both charged at each, and when they both reached the middle of the training field, Naruto swung at Hinata with a right hook, but Hinata blocked and threw a straight right punch to his gut. Naruto saw it and blocked and pushed her away a few feet, then he ran at her and tried to jump knee her in the face. Hinata used amazing flexibility and to bend backwards to dodge the attack, and Naruto flew right over her. When Naruto landed on his feet, he spun around and quickly tried to axe kick Hinata. But Hinata quickly pushed herself up off the ground and jumped a few feet back to avoid the attack. When Naruto's foot hit the ground, spider cracks appeared on the ground, then he looked up to see Hinata came skidding to a halt. Hinata looked back at Naruto and gave him a smirk. Then she charged at Naruto and aimed a shot at his head, but he dodged the shot with little effort. But while he was busy with that, she used her speed and shot a kick to Naruto's gut. The attack made contact, but not the way that she was hoping. She looked and saw that Naruto had caught the kick. He gave her a smirk and used his strength to flip her backwards. Hinata adjusted herself in midair, looked back at Naruto and saw him running through handseal. Wind style, piercing shot. And after he said that, a thin condensed stream of air shot out of his mouth and headed straight for Hinata, kicking up dust as it went along. The shot made contact and sent Hinata flying into a tree. When the dust finally settled, Naruto saw that in Hinata's place was a shredded up log with a piece of paper that said, "Missed me." Naruto gasped in surprise. He looked to see where she went to and couldn't find her. Then he heard a noise coming from behind him and quickly turned around. Then he saw something come down from the tree. He saw Hinata coming down at him with her fist drawn back ready to punch. Hinata let loose her punch and made contact with the ground, missing Naruto completely. She looked around in confusion. Where did he go? She thought. Then she heard, "Over here." Then Hinata looked behind her and saw Naruto was at the other end of the training field with his arms crossed over his chest and a confident smirk on his face. She looked at him and thought, how did he get over there so quickly? That wasn't a substitute, since there was nothing left in his place, and I didn't feel him use any chakra to shushin himself. "Well, are you going to stand there all day or are you going to fight me?" said Naruto. Hinata shook herself out of her stupor and quickly threw a few shuriken at Naruto. Naruto just sidestepped them, but to Hinata it looked like he teleported himself to the left. Then Hinata got an idea. She threw a single kunai and did a few hand signs and said, "Shadow Shuriken Jutsu." The one kunai turned into 100 and headed straight for Naruto. Naruto just kept sidestepping each kunai, each time disappearing from one spot and reappearing in another spot each time he was getting closer to where Hinata was standing. When he got to her, he delivered a hard punch to her abdomen which sent her rolling to the about 10 feet away from him. When she got back up to her feet, she looked at Naruto and said, "Clearly I've underestimated you. A mistake I'm not going to make a second time." And after she said that, she reached for her pocket for something. Naruto got into a fighting stance, preparing for the girl's worst. Then Hinata pulled out a pair black leather gloves. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this and wondered what Hinata has in mind. She put on the gloves and flexed her hands and made a fist. She then ran at Naruto and jumped into the air and headed straight for him. Naruto just jumped backwards and watched as the girl's punch made a giant 10-foot wide crack in the ground and made huge chunks of earth and rocks pop out of the ground. Then while Naruto was still in the air, Hinata stomped her foot on the ground and all the chunks of earth hopped up into the air, then with super fast speed got behind all of the rocks and punched them all in Naruto's direction. Naruto saw this coming. Since he couldn't dodge, he decided to punch his way through. With each boulder that came at him, Naruto punched through them all until they were nothing but rubble. But unaware that Hinata was charging at him behind all of the boulders and caught Naruto by surprise and punched Naruto in the face. Naruto went skidding to the ground and Hinata had a confident sly smile on her face. Naruto got back to his feet, turned to Hinata and said, "Damn Hinata, you hit pretty hard. You're not too bad yourself," said Hinata. "It's obvious that you're holding back, don't?" he demanded. "Well," she said with a smirk, "if you truly insist." And just as she said that, her body just faded into thin air. Naruto was stunned at what the girl just did. Where did she? His thoughts were interrupted by unexpected punch to the gut, sending him rolling a few feet away. He looked up while crouching on the ground, trying to figure out where that hit came from. "What's wrong?" said Hinata's voice coming from all directions. "I thought you didn't want me to hold back." "Oh, I see, not just proficient in taijutsu but a genjutsu mistress as well," said Naruto while looking for any sign of the girl. "You didn't want me to hold back, so I expect the same from you," Hinata said confidently. Naruto decided to accept the girl's challenge and tried to find the girl. When his sense of sight failed, he closed his eyes and started using his other senses. He focused and noticed that the ground vibrated slightly, the grass rustled, and ever so familiar smell of lavender. He opened his eyes, raised his hands and caught the next strike Hinata delivered. He looked and saw the form of Hinata Reaper out of the air and saw that he was holding her leg, stopping her kick. Then while still holding onto her leg, he quickly picked her up and threw her across the field where she rolled to a stop. The two of them just looked at each other, then the both of them just started to laugh at each other for no real reason. "You ready for round 2? Said Naruto. "Hell yeah," said Hinata. They kept sparring with each other like this for the next few hours, one never yielding, never gaining advantage over the other, until they noticed that the sun had gone down, and the moon has risen. "Why don't we call it for the night?" said Naruto while panting lightly. "Okay," said Hinata equally exhausted. "Come on, I'll walk you to your home." So the two of them were walking through the village idly chatting amongst themselves. "Where do you learn to fight like that?" he asked her. "I was taught everything I know by my mistress." "Mistress doesn't sound like a title that the Hyuga clan bestows," he said slyly. "It's not. She isn't part of the Hyuga clan. Let me guess. This mistress of yours, she was no love for the Hyuga clan either." Hinata nodded her head. Naruto just looked at her in astonishment. Hinata saw the look on his face and asked, "What? My master, the man who taught me, he has no love for the village just like your mistress and the Hyuga clan. Our lives are pretty much mirror images of the other. Does that necessarily have to be a bad thing?" Hinata said in a quiet voice. "No, it's a great thing. My whole life I always thought that I was completely alone in this village. And then you just show up out of nowhere and, well, you understand everything about me," he said in a happy tone. "Naruto, I felt the same," said Hinata. The two of them just stared at each other, looking deep into each other's eyes. Then suddenly a group of 10 people came walking out of one of the bars reeking of booze, saw the children, and one of them said, well, look what we, got her boy, it's the demon of the leaf. Yeah, and look, he's got a little friend with him too. Don't tell us what to do, you little shit," he said in a slurred voice. "Don't call Naruto names, you drunken asshole," said Hinata. "Oh yeah, and what are you exactly, his little whore or something?" laughed the man in his drunken stupor. When that man said that, a loud growl came from Naruto, and then he suddenly jumped at the man that called Hinata a whore, channeled chakra through his body, and when he did that a cloak of red energy surrounded his body, turning his eyes into red slited fox eyes and his nails turned into claw. Then Naruto charged with blinding speed and slashed at him. He then skidded to a halt behind the man with blood dripping of his fingertips. The group looked back at their friend and one of them said, "Hey Kaden, you alright, man?" He went to approach him, and just as he got close to him, Kaden's head split into 4 diagonal chunks of flesh, and blood just started shooting out of his neck like a geyser, and he fell down dead. Then all of the men and Hinata looked. Naruto turned to the group, licking the blood off his finger. The group of drunks were looking at Naruto with anger and fear, but Hinata looked at Naruto with excitement and lust in her eyes. Then one of the guys said, "The demon killed Kaden, get him." Then one of the men charged at Naruto, ready to strike. Naruto saw this coming and get ready to kill the man, but something unexpected happened. The man's chest exploded outward and covered Naruto in the blood. Then everybody looked and saw that Hinata had punched a hole through the man's chest. Naruto looked at Hinata with a scenes in admiration. He also noticed that Hinata's eyes were glowing purple and she had a violet aura radiating off her body. It seems that the demon has a little she-devil bitch. Come on boys, let's get them. Then they all charged at the two teens. Naruto and Hinata just looked at each other and grew big smiles on their faces. They both ran at the group of men. The two of them slashed and punched at their faces, broke their necks, clawed their hearts out of their chests, ripped their spines and skulls. When it was finally over, Naruto and Hinata were the only ones left standing, and they were both coated in the blood of the men that they had just killed. They were standing side by side when they both looked at each other. They looked at each other's eyes and suddenly they leaned in and kissed each other. After 5 seconds of kissing each other, they broke apart and looked at each other in surprise, and then Naruto decided to break the silence. "I guess there is more to you than meets the eyes. I could say the same about you. Come on, let's get out of here before somebody shows up," said Naruto while grabbing Hinata's wrist. Where are we going? Asked Hinata. Back to my apartment. For the next 10 minutes they ran through the village until they came to an old apartment building and made their way inside. They finally got to his apartment, and he opened the door and they both walked in. Then Naruto looked at Hinata and asked, "So what was with the whole purple energy thing back there? I don't know what the hell was the red energy that I saw was? Just stay here, alright." Then Naruto walked out of the room. He went into the kitchen and started to talk to the nine-tailed fox. "Master, can you hear me?" thought Naruto. "Of course I can, Kit. You saw what happened back there, right? Yay, you kissed your little friend. That's not what I meant, you perverted fox. I know what you meant, boy. This explains a lot about that girl." "What do you mean exactly?" "I mean that the two of you share one quality in particular that sets you apart from the rest of the world." "You mean?" "Yes, but how could she have a demon sealed in her like I do?" "Wait, could she possibly have one of the other 9 demons you said are walking the earth in her?" I don't know. Why don't we go and ask the both of them?" "How?" "I know a mind-melding technique that can let you link your mind to her." Back with Hinata. "What do you make off all of this, mistress?" thought Hinata. "I knew that chakra was familiar somehow," said Lilith. "What do you mean? That boy is special just as you are." "I don't understand." "Well, there is only one way to know for sure." Just then, Naruto came walking back into the room and sat down on the couch with Hinata and said, "Hinata, I want to perform a special jutsu on the both of us. It's a mind-melding jutsu." "Why do you want to do that?" "It's a theory that my master wants to confirm." "Who is your master?" "You'll see when I perform the jutsu. Do you agree to do this?" "Yes," said Hinata a bit nervously. Naruto put his forehead against hers and they both closed their eyes. Then Naruto preformed a few hand signs and said, "Mind meld jutsu." Then the whole world around them went black, and when they opened their eyes they saw that they were inside a dark, empty space. The only occupancy were themselves, or so they thought. When the two of them looked behind the other they saw both Kyuubi and Lilith. "Well, look who it is, old Fuzzface himself," said Lilith with her arms crossed over her chest. "Ah, Lilith, see, you haven't grown up one bit," said Kyuubi. "What a minute, what's going on? Who is that woman?" said Naruto in a surprised voice. "This Naruto is Lilith, the Succubus queen, aka the most immature person you'll ever meet." "Hey, you can't talk to my mistress like that," screamed Hinata. "It's all right, Hinata, this is an old friend of mine. His name is Kurama the Nine-Tailed Fox." Hinata showed a look of shock and said, "You mean the Kyuubi that attacked the village 13 years ago?" "It's a long, complicated story," said Naruto. "Speaking of stories, where have you been, Fuzzface? The last time I saw you was when you and your 9 siblings escaped from hell." "Well, for a good part of those centuries I was in hiding. Recently I have been with this boy." Then Lilith gave a small giggle, walked up to Naruto and said, "So I finally meet the little cutie that has captured Hinata's heart." "Mistress," screamed Hinata in embarrassment, still as blunt as ever is she. "But a bigger question that I have is, how did you end up in this girl?" said Kurama. And they told their stories, right down to the last detail. From Naruto trying to commit suicide, Hinata's family life, Kurama and Lilith taking the children as their apprentices. Naruto and Hinata even told each other about how they wanted to take revenge on the village. "So you really want to make everyone pay for what they've done?" said Naruto. "Yes, ever since I was a little girl, I hated everyone for all the pain they've ever caused me. And I swore that I will make them pay," said Hinata. "Well, Lilith, it looks like we all have a common goal here," said Kurama. "It would seem that we do." "Hey, what are you two talking about?" said Naruto. "We're proposing an alliance between all 4 of us," said Lilith. "An alliance, mistress?" said Hinata. "Yes, we share the same dream of seeing this village pay for what it's done to us," said Kurama. "And you have to admit, 4 heads are better than 2, said Lilith. Naruto and Hinata thought about it for a few minutes, then looked at each other, and Naruto said, "They're right. If we work together we can cause way more damage than we ever could on our own," said Naruto with a hint of excitement in his voice. "Yay, if we keep training together and get stronger, then there would be nobody in this village who could stop us," said Hinata. "So I take it that we all have an agreement?" asked Lilith. Then all 4 gave a wicked smile to each other and began plotting the destruction of the Leaf Village. 2 years later, nighttime in the Hidden Leaf Village. It was one of the more peaceful times for many. The fireflies were dotting the air with light, The moon was bathing the village with its pale glow, and everything just said, tranquility. There were people in it that were the exception. There was a man wearing a chunin vest, a head of silver hair covered by a leaf village bandana running through the forest with a few oversized shurikens on his back, and a giant scroll on his back that was marked with the kanji for forbidden written on its side. His name was Mizuki. He was currently trying to make his way out of the land of fire. Finally, the forbidden scroll is mine, cheered Mizuki. Then suddenly out of nowhere a wire net shot out of the bushes and headed right for Mizuki. Fortunately, Mizuki swapped his body with a log and got out of the way just on time to see the net cut the log to ribbons. Where the hell did that come from? Thought Mizuki. You're very lucky to have dodged that, said a mysterious male voice. Who said that? Said Mizuki with fear in his voice. Mizuki, chunin of Konoha, a teacher at the academy, and apparently a traitor, said a second female voice. Who are you? What do you want? Said Mizuki. We don't want much, said the female voice. Just give us that scroll on your back, said the male voice. Huh, forget it. You want this scroll, you're going to pry it from me cold dead hands. As you wish, said both voices at once. Then Mizuki heard something behind him and quickly turned his head to see Fist heading for his face. He did a replacement jutsu and just barely escaped. Mizuki reappeared on a tree branch and looked back at the attacker and saw a girl dressed in black skin-tight enbu shorts that hugged her frame in all the right places, a semi-see-through mesh top, fish net arm warmers, and short hair. Mizuki looked down at the ground and saw that there was a good-sized crater right where he was once standing. Then Mizuki heard another noise coming from his left and saw another body heading straight for him. He quickly jumped off the tree just in time to see the tree get cut to pieces. He landed on the ground opposite of the individuals. He saw that the boy had spiky blonde hair that grew to his mid-neck, wearing black enbu pants, a white shirt under a black sleeveless leather duster hoodie with orange highlights. Mizuki saw that these were just a couple of kids, yet wondered how they knew that he would be here. He saw that both of them were looking at him with sinister smiles on their face. Who the fuck are you two? Screamed Mizuki. I'm a little hurt, Mizuki. Yay, don't you recognize two of your own students? Mizuki stared at the duo in confusion until realization dawned on him. I know you two, you're the demon boy and that Hyuga girl that dresses like a whore. Naruto gave the man an angry growl and said, how dare you talk Hinata like that? Oh please. Look at her, only a slut would dress like that, Mizuki said with a smirk. Naruto moved forward to teach Mizuki a lesson but was held back by Hinata. He looked back at Hinata as she walked ahead of him. She looked at Mizuki with a serious expression on her face and said, this is the last time that we will ask you. Give us the scroll and maybe we will kill you quickly and semi-painlessly. Huh? Laughed Mizuki. You think that I'm just gonna hand this key to untold power to you? You're out of your fucking minds. It took us a lot of effort to keep tabs on you, Mizuki, and for all of that trouble we don't intend to walk away empty-handed, said Naruto in an annoyed tone. I don't know how you two punks found out about what I was doing tonight, and I don't care, but if you two think that you could lay a finger on me, then you're out of your freaking minds. Naruto and Hinata looked at each other and smirked. Well, if you truly insist on doing it the hard way, said Hinata, then we have no with tearing you limb from limb. Alright then, said Mizuki as he unstrapped a giant shuriken from his back. If the two of you are so eager to die, then I'll gladly put you out of your misery. Mizuki starts to twirl the shuriken around in his hand, takes aim at the two, and with all of his might throws the weapon at the demon hosts. The Chunin smirked as he saw his weapon approach the kids, but was a bit perplexed that neither one of them had made any effort to try and dodge the weapon. The both just stood there as the projectile came closer and closer. Then something unexpected happened. The giant weapon passed right through the teens like they were a cloud of smoke and embedded itself into the tree behind them. Mizuki looked around and said, what the shit did genjutsu, or did the... His sentence was interrupted when he got kicked in the head by Hinata and punched in the gut by Naruto and went flying into a tree. Mizuki got back to his feet and screamed, you little pieces of shit. I'll kill you. Mizuki then unstrapped the second shurikens off his back and threw it at the pair. Naruto just stretched out his hand and caught it. Mizuki just stood there stupefied at what the boy had just done. Then Naruto just took the shuriken and threw it back at Mizuki. Mizuki saw this and quickly moved out of the way of the flying projectile. but failed to notice Hinata charging at him and delivering a powerful 5-hit combo to his stomach and face that pushed him back a couple of feet. Then Naruto appeared behind him, grabbed his waist and suplexed Mizuki into the dirt. Mizuki quickly got to his feet while holding his side in pain. "That's it. Now you made me angry," yelled Mizuki. Then he went through a series of hand signs. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu. A giant fireball shot out of headed for Naruto. Naruto just quick-stepped around the fireball and charged at Mizuki with his fist cocked back. Mizuki saw that and got ready to fight. Naruto unleashed a series of punches that Mizuki blocked and dodged. While the two of them were doing that, Hinata was gathering chakra into her hand and punched the ground with all her might. She sent her chakra through the ground and made a stalagmite. Naruto saw what Hinata did and jumped out of the way. Mizuki couldn't react in time and was hit in the chest. He was thrown off of his feet and came to a rolling stop on the ground. Mizuki tried to stand up but groaned in pain when he felt that ribs crack in his chest. "You little bastards. How could you possibly be this strong?" he groaned in pain. "The first lesson that you taught us in the academy was that deception is a ninja's best friend," said Naruto. "Well, Mizuki, this was fun. But I think that it's about time we end this," said Hinata with a wicked smirk. Then Naruto and Hinata ran at high speed straight at Mizuki, and when they were standing right in front of him, they both shoved their arms forearm deep into Mizuki's chest. Mizuki looked down with shock and pain in his eyes. Then suddenly the two teens pulled their hands back and pulled Mizuki's heart right out of his chest, leaving a gaping hole. Mizuki's blood shot out of his chest and covered the two of them in blood. The two of basked in the shower of blood and let the warm liquid wash over them. Then the two of them just stared at each other, and then smashed their lips together in a hot, passionate kiss. Hinata wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and he wrapped his arms around her waist and gripped her ass. Ever since the day that Naruto and Hinata and their demon masters had formed an alliance with each other, the two of them had become boyfriend and girlfriend. And the two of them had found out that they had a weird little fetish for blood. Even the littlest bit of it got the two of them hot under the collar for each other. The two of them made out for 10 seconds before Naruto said, "We better grab that scroll quick before somebody come to check what all the noise was about." Then Hinata grabbed the scroll and made sure that no evidence that they were ever there. Then they both took out a set of brushes and dipped them in Mizuki's blood. Then they started to painting weird satanic-looking symbols on the trees and the ground. When they were done, they pumped their chakra into blood. It glowed for 10 seconds until it stopped, and then they both made their way back to Naruto's apartment. When they got there, they shut the door behind and looked at each other for a second and started to laugh. "You did great out there, love," said Naruto. "So did you. Now where were we?" said Hinata in a sultry voice. They slowly walked towards each other and started making out with each other again. Then Naruto pushed Hinata up against the wall and licked her lips, asking for entrance, which she gladly allowed. Their tongues danced with each other and both had pure looks of lust and love on their faces. When the two of them were interacting with anyone from the village, they were the coldest, most aggressive and two people that you would ever know. But when they were together, then you would swear that you have never seen a happier, more loving pair in the whole village. Then suddenly they heard a voice say, "Alright, you two, you can continue doing that another time," said Kyuubi. "Thank you for ruining the moment, master," said Naruto. Since the alliance between all four of them, they had developed a seal that lets them all talk to each other. "Well, since we have your attention, why don't we take a look at what that scroll has to offer?" said Lilith. Naruto and Hinata made their way to the living room, laid the scroll on the ground and unrolled it. They both sat on the ground and started memorizing the secrets that the scroll had to give. They saw a dozen different jutsu, all of which could cause widespread destruction if used right. But those jutsu weren't even close to what they were looking for. They were looking for a specific jutsu would help them put their plan in motion. 2 years ago they had all come up with a plan to take over the village and make it into their own empire. "Here it is," said Hinata in excitement. Naruto looked, and sure enough, there it was, the flying thunder god. "Yes," cheered Naruto. "Now we can just find a way to make it more powerful," said Lilith. They spent the next few hours studying the fourth Hokage's legendary jutsu. They studied what you need in order to make the jutsu work, while at the same time tweaking the jutsu so it fits their needs. Hinata looked at the time and saw that it was 11 at night, looked at Naruto and said, It's getting late, Naruto, why don't we stop for the night? Alright, we'll pick up tomorrow. Don't forget that we have our team placements tomorrow. Then Hinata leaned closer to Naruto with a smile on her face and asked. Hey, I don't feel like dealing with my family and all their crap tonight. Do you mind if I stay the night? Naruto grew a wickedly sly smile and said in a humorous manner. Why no, I don't mind at all, my dear. But there is only one bed, so we're going to have to share. Oh, that's fine. I wasn't planning on doing much sleeping anyways, she said in a sultry voice. Hinata grabbed Naruto's arm, got up and headed for Naruto's bedroom. Hinata quickly went into the bathroom, while Naruto stayed in the bedroom and started to get undressed. When he got down to his boxers, he heard the door to the bathroom open and was awestruck at what he saw. He saw Hinata standing in the doorway leaning on one of the posts, posing completely naked with a lustful look in her eyes. Naruto looked at Hinata and could feel himself getting hard. So, see something that you like? Said Hinata, doing a few white poses, noticing the growing bulge in Naruto's pants. Yay, I see the most gorgeous, most beautiful woman in the whole world. Hinata blushed and giggled slightly when he said that. Even when she was trying to be why, he still knew how to her feel like shy little school girls. Classroom. The two of them walked into the classroom and took their usual seats in the top back row. After a few minutes, the rest of the class started to fill up the classroom. The two of them looked around at the class and saw all of the students and sneered at them. Granted that not all of them were bad. There was a few individuals that stuck out among them. One of them was Shino Aburame. He is a little quiet, but he was a good person that never bothered than two of them. The other was a little fat boy named Choji Akamichi, who was generally a nice guy to everyone. Then there was Shikamaru Nara, who would spend most of his time napping than he would doing anything else. Then there was the lively Ino Yamanaka, who, although a bit of a hothead and bossy as hell, was always trying to understand everything before doing anything. They also just noticed that Kiba wailing through the door holding his side in pain. Then both Naruto and Hinata heard a sound that made the two of them sigh in frustration. A second later, the door bursts open to reveal the one girl in the world that everyone wished would just go away come through the door. "Oh Sasuke," shouted the girl. This girl was none other than Sakura Haruno. This girl, in the opinion of Naruto and Hinata, is the prime examples of phrases. A waste of space, a waste of time, and their personal favorite, cannon fodder. When she walked into the room, she immediately made a beeline to the seat by the far window. "Hey Sasuke, can I sit by you today?" she said in a dreamy voice that made all of the others groan in annoyance. "Hey, why should you get to sit next to Sasuke?" said one of the other kunoichi. "Yeah, if anyone should sit by him, it should be me," said another kunoichi. "No, it should be me." "No, me." And then before anybody knew it, almost the entire female population of the class was in an uproar about who gets to sit next to Sasuke. Said Sasuke in annoyance. This boy was Sasuke Uchiha, the last surviving loyal Uchiha in the village. He earned that title when his older brother Itachi Uchiha killed his whole family. Naruto and Hinata, knowing the true past of the Uchiha clan, scoffed at how people could actually use the word loyal to describe an Uchiha. They decided that one day the two of them are going to die by their hands and have one hell of a feast made from them to celebrate their painful deaths. After 5 minutes of yelling and screaming, Hinata just couldn't take it anymore. "Holy fucking shit, will you all shut the hell up?" screamed Hinata while letting off a good amount of killing intent. Everyone in the classroom looked at Hinata, some with looks of shock and some with looks of fright. Sakura and the others, however, looked at Hinata with both shock and fear. Sakura was the first to recover. She looked at Hinata and said, "Oh come on Hinata, don't be angry with us just because you have to sit next to that blonde loser," said Sakura with a sense of triumph and superiority. Hinata just stared at Sakura with annoyance. Then before anyone knew it, Hinata was standing in front of Sakura and with all of her might, bitch slap her so hard that she pushed her away a good 5 feet. Just as Hinata lowered her hand, she heard a few voices in her head say, "Way to shut that bitch up, Hinata," thought Naruto with a great sense of pride. "Yes, thank you, the fucking banshee was giving me a headache," said the Lilith in a relived manner. "Giving you a headache? You try having to listen to that girl with sensitive ears and we'll see how you feel," said Kyuubi in a semi-pissed off voice. And just as Sakura was getting up, the door opened to reveal the teacher Iruka Amino. Iruka came through the door, looked at the students and said, "Alright, everyone sit down and we will begin with your team placements," said Iruka with a stern voice. "Hey, where is Mizuki-sensei?" asked a random student in confusion. Iruka looked at the classroom and said, "Mizuki was killed late last night." This caused the class to break out in murmurs. Naruto and Hinata, however, smiled at that bit of information, remembering how they had killed Mizuki and more of the way they spent that night together. "Settle down. Mizuki was a traitor who tried to steal some of the village's best-kept secrets. Do not mourn for a traitor," said Iruka in a very stern and serious voice. After that was said, most of the graduates were a little surprised to hear that their sensei was a traitor to the village. But just then Iruka said, "Now that that's out of the way, let us begin with your team placements." Time skip. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki, said Iruka. When that was said, Sakura jumped for joy knowing that she was on the same team as Sasuke. The Uchiha just kept staring out into space, not caring about the team he was on. But Naruto was cursing whatever god had given him such bad luck for being on the same team as those two good-for-nothings. Team 8 will be Shino Aburama, Kiba Inuzuka, and Hinata Hyuga. Shino just said nothing and nodded, having heard what team he was going to be on. Kiba leapt for joy after hearing that he was going to be on the Hyuga girls team. And Hinata cursed just as loudly as Naruto did when she heard that the fucking mutt was on her team. And Team 10 will be Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, and Shikamaru Nara. I wish you all the best of luck with your future, and I am very proud to have been called your sensei. Please wait right where you are and your new team leaders will come to get you." And when that was done and Iruka had left, the students started to walk around and talk to their new teammates. Naruto and Hinata still sat next to each other and noticed the group of clan heirs approaching them. "Hinata, I would like to personally thank you for shutting Sakura up," said Shikamaru gratefully. "Yes, seriously, it's girls like her that give the rest of us kunoichi a bad name," said Ino. "Believe me, it was my pleasure," said Hinata with a smile. "I'm surprised that she was even able to get this far in the academy," said Naruto. "My father was complaining about that the other day. They have seriously lowered the standards for the academy," said Choji. "That will backfire on the village eventually," said Shino. After waiting for a few minutes of them all talking, a man wearing a standard Junin outfit with a goatee smoking a cigarette came into the room and said, "Name's Asuma, whoever is Team 10 come with me," he said in a nonchalant manner. Then Ino, Shikamaru and Choji got up and followed the man out of the door. About 20 minutes a woman with bright red eyes, long black hair in a custom-made female Junin outfit came into the room and said, "Alright Team 8 come with me," she said with a commanding tone. And with that the three got up and headed out the door. But just before Hinata walked out of the door, she turned to Naruto, winked at him and blew him a kiss. Then for the next 3 hours Team 7 waited for their sensei. Sasuke and Sakura were getting really pissed right now. "Where the heck is our sensei?" screamed Sakura in anger. "Seriously, this is just getting ridiculous," said Sasuke in an annoyed. Naruto, however, was sitting in the back of the classroom meditating. Naruto Mindscape. Naruto's mindscape had changed over the years. Instead of it being in a sewer, it has now turned into the Leaf Village. Specifically, it was the Leaf Village after the Kyuubi had destroyed it. The buildings were nothing but ruin and everything was lit ablaze, and the sky was dark and shooting off red lightning bolt ever now and then. And in the center of the village is Naruto and Kyuubi sitting across from each other playing a game of chess. Kyuubi had just moved his knight and took Naruto's rook. You seem a little distracted," said Kyuubi calmly, looking down at the chessboard. "I guess I'm just annoyed about getting the emo king and his little whore as teammates," Naruto said annoyingly while moving his bishop to take Kyuubi's knight. "Just keep thinking of the day that you're going to kill the Uchiha bastard. That's what always brings a smile to my face," Kyuubi said while moving his queen to take Naruto's king. "Checkmate." Naruto grumbled in defeat, and then his master spoke. "Kit, I think that your sensei is finally here." After everyone had made it to the roof, they all got settled, looked at each other, and then the Junin said, "Alright, since we are all on the same team, I think that it's only right that we get to know each other. So why don't you give us your name, your likes, your dislikes, dreams for the future, hobbies, stuff like that. Why don't you go first to show us what you mean?" said Sakura with a hint of confusion in her voice. Everyone just looked at her awkwardly. Okay fine. My name is Kakashi Hitaki, my likes and dislikes, I don't really feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future, never really thought about that. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies, he said in an unenergetic voice. Well, that was pointless, all we got out of him was his name. Was the thought that all of the genin shared. Why don't you go first, Pinky? Said Kakashi. Sakura stared at their sensei with anger at the nickname she had just got. She continued. My name is Sakura Haruno, my like are, looks over to Sasuke and blushes, and my dislikes are Hinata slut. My hobbies are flower pressing, and my dreams for the future are, thinks about a possible future with Sasuke, she says with a while giggling and blushing at the thought. Kakashi just stared at the girl and thought, oh great, a fucking fangirl. He thought with disgust. Then he just continued onward, looked at Sasuke and said. Okay, you next, dark and gruesome. Kakashi said nonchalantly. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I have a lot of things that I don't like, and less things that I do like. I don't have any hobbies, and my dream is to see a certain man die by my hands, said Sasuke in an emotionless voice. Then Kakashi thought, just as I thought, seeks revenge against his brother. He looked at the last member of Genin and said, you're up next, Blondie, he said in a joking manner. Naruto looked at the Junin and scowled in anger at him and said, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. I hate everyone around me, I like to cause people pain. My hobbies are none of your damn business, and you'll all find out what my dreams for the future are one day, he said in a cold and hateful voice. Everyone just looked at Naruto in a surprised, and each with a different thought going through their heads. Weird, this kid was nothing like what I thought he would be, thought Kakashi while raising an eyebrow at the boy. Man, that Naruto is one giant freak, thought Sakura while scoffing at Naruto. As long as he doesn't get in the way of my goals, then who cares, thought Sasuke in a superior manner. Then Kakashi said, well, now that we are all acquainted with each other, why don't we discuss your survival test? He said in a cheerful way. What are you talking about, sensei? We already had a test, that's how we got the rank of Genin, said Sakura in a worried voice. That test that you're talking about is the academy test, you stupid bitch, said Naruto in an angry, pissed off tone. Naruto is right, the test that I am referring to is the survival test that all of the Junin have to give their Genin teams. The academy test that you passed was just to see if you had the necessary skills needed to be ninjas. The test I'm going to give you is to see if you can survive the life of a ninja. Oh, and just a heads up, out of the 27 that graduated from the academy, only 9 of you are actually going to become Genin. So technically speaking, the 3 of you only have about a 34% chance of success, said Kakashi with an uncaring voice. This news shocked Sasuke and Sakura to their core. They were both thinking of all of the work that they had done suddenly going down the drain just like that. Naruto, however, didn't even flinch at the thought. He knew that being a Genin was essential for his cover, but not for the Grand Master plan. So with that being said, I'll see you 3 tomorrow at 5 o'clock in the morning at Training Ground 7. Oh, and don't eat breakfast tomorrow morning or you'll just throw it up, said Kakashi. And with that, Kakashi disappeared in a swirl of leaves, leaving the 3 Genin all alone. Naruto was the first one to get up. Well, guess I'll see you 2 weaklings later, said Naruto. Don't you call Sasuke a loser, screamed Sakura. Oh please, will you shut, said Naruto, annoyed beyond end. Your voice is annoying enough when you talk regularly. Sakura ground her teeth in anger and was getting ready to punch Naruto. Will you two be quiet, ordered Sasuke while walking over to them. Look, I have worked hard to get where I am, and I am not about to let the 2 of you stop me from completing my ambition. Oh yes, like you, the great and powerful Uchiha can take on whatever that Junin has in store for us. What are you gonna do? Swing that giant Uchiha ego of yours at him, said Naruto. Sasuke growled and said, don't you dare mock my name. The Uchiha clan is the elite of this village. If that is true, then why are they so dead? Said Naruto in a superior tone. It was that remark that made Sasuke snap and throw a punch at Naruto. Naruto caught the punch and started to squeeze his hands. Sasuke winced at the pain and was trying to loosen Naruto's grip. Sakura looked on at what was happening but was too shocked to move from her spot. Let's get this one thing, Uchiha. I don't like you, but unfortunately we are on the same team, So do all of us a favor and leave that ego of yours at home," said Naruto as he threw Sasuke to the ground. Then Naruto just walked over to the edge of the building and jumped off of it. Sasuke and Sakura went over to the edge to see that he had landed safely on the ground. Naruto just looked up at them for a second and then just walked away. Streets of Konoha. Naruto was walking through the streets, not really going anywhere in particular, until he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Hello there, handsome." Naruto turned around, and instantly had a smile on his face. He saw Hinata walking towards him with a slight sway in her hips and an equally happy smile on her face. "Hello beautiful," said Naruto in happy and flirting way. They both walked up to each other and embraced one another and finally kissed each other. All of the people in the streets gave looks of disgust as they watched the demon spawn of Konoha kiss the Hyuga princess. Naruto and Hinata could feel all of the stares that all of the people were giving them. They stopped kissing each other, released a large amount of killing intent, looked around them and at the same time shouted, "What the fuck are you assholes looking at?" Everybody jumped a little and stopped staring, and they just went back to doing whatever it was that they were doing. Once the couple saw that everyone had stopped staring, Naruto looked back at Hinata with a smile and wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned her head on Naruto's shoulder and just continued walking down the street until they reached a small bridge that went over a tiny stream. Then Hinata looked at Naruto and said, "So Naruto, how was your afternoon with the King of Broods and his little pink whore?" she said with disgust in her voice. "Horrible, I can already tell that this team is going to be as useful as a hole in the head," groaned Naruto in a frustrated tone. He then looked at Hinata and asked, "So, what was your team like?" Flashback. Team 8 was sitting in a small tea house called the Tranquil Tiger. The waitress had just brought them their order when their sensei decided to speak. "Well, since the four of us are going to be spending a lot of time together as a team, it is only appropriate that we get to know each other a little better. I will go first. My name is Kurenai Yuhi. I'm a special Junin. I enjoy reading and flower pressing, and hate perverted assholes. I also have the hopes of becoming one of the greatest genjutsu users in all of the elemental nations." "Okay, you can go next," she said in a calm voice while gesturing to Shino. "My name is Shino Aburame. I like studying and collecting new insects and arachnids, and my hopes for the future are to become the head of my clan one day," he said in an emotionless, calculative voice. Straight to the point, and very little emotion. Just as his file said he would be. Thought Kurenai, and then she looked at Kiba and simply said, "Okay, you next." "Well, alright, my name is Kiba Inazuka. I like my companion Akamaru. I hate that damn asshole Naruto, and my ultimate dream for the future is to, prove my alpha statues to a certain someone," he said while giving a smile to Hinata as he said the last part. "Oh great, I can already tell that this kid is going to be a pain in the ass to teach." Kurenai thought in anger. She then turned to the last member of her team who was calmly drinking her tea and said, "Your turn now," she said with a smile on her face. Hinata put down the cup of tea and looked at the group of people and said, "My name is Hinata. I like exciting and pleasurable experiences, and I hate dogs, and my dreams for the future are a little too personal for me to go into," she said while giving an innocent smile. Kurenai just looked at the girl with a surprised look on her face. This girl was nothing like she thought that she'd be like. She wasn't like what her file said she would be, and she most certainly didn't fit the Hyuga criteria. Then she just looked at all of her students and said, "Well, seeing as how we're all acquainted with each other, I think now is a good time to discuss your genin graduation test." Then Kiba looked at Kurenai and said, "Whoa, what are you talking about? We just passed our graduation test, that's how we got here," he said with confusion in his voice. "True enough, but the test that I am referring to is the test that all of the Junin give to the new graduates to see if you can really handle the ninja lifestyle. And if you don't pass the little test that I have for you, then you all are going back to the academy. So my advice to you all is go home and get a good night's rest and meet me at Training Ground 12 tomorrow at 8 o'clock a.m. And as Kurenai said that, she got up out of her seat and left the three genin to talk. The three teens just sat there until Kiba, out of his stupidity, to break the silence. "Well, it would seem that fate has conspired to keep us together, huh, Hinata?" he said while wrapping his arm around her. "Kiba, you have 5 seconds to take that arm off of me before I throw you to the floor," she said. "Leave her alone, Kiba," said Shino. "Why? She's totally into it." "Time's up," said Hinata. Then she grabbed Kiba's arm and flipped him over her shoulder and onto the table and broke it. Then after that she got up and simple walked out the front door. Then Shino got up from his chair, looked down at Kiba and said, "Get it through your head, Kiba, she is not interested." And then he just walked away. Flashback end. Well, aside from that idiot Inuzuka, I can probably play along with the others. Especially Shino, he always had a good head about him. Said Hinata. When the time comes I will make sure that fucking Mutt dies slowly and painfully. Said Naruto in anger while tightening his grip on Hinata. Then Hinata turned to him, gave him a lust-filled gaze and said, "Oh, don't start talking like that unless you're willing to finish what you started," she said while turning so she can press her S into Naruto's chest and wrapping her arms around Naruto's neck. And Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist and their head got closer to each other and then their lips came crashing together in a heat of passion. As much as I hate to be the one that breaks up this beautiful scene, but we have company, said Lilith. Then the two lovers broke away just in time to see a man shushin behind them. Then the man looked up at them and said, "Lady Hinata, Lord Hiyashi wants you to come home immediately. I'm busy right now, go and tell my father that he can go fuck himself." Hinata said with an amused smile on her face. "He says that it is urgent for you to come home now." "Fine, let me see what he wants," she said while sighing in frustration. The messenger then shunned. Then Hinata looked back at Naruto, gave him a quick kiss and then went back to the Hyuga compound. Then Naruto turned around and went back to his apartment to get ready for the survival test tomorrow. Hinata had just entered the Hyuga compound and was heading for her father's study. On her way there she saw many of the clan members walking around doing their various chores. After a few minutes of walking, she finally got to her father's office. She pushed open the door to her father's study. She saw Hiyashi turn towards her and then he yelled, "Hinata, where the hell have you been for the last day and a half?" Hinata kept her cool, looked at her father and said, "None of your damn business, now what the fuck do you want? How dare talk to me like that, you ungrateful bitch? We are here to discuss your future in the Hyuga clan," screamed Hiyashi in anger. Hinata yawned and with a bored expression on her face and said, "Fine, what do you want? I want to know where you have been and what you've been doing." Said Hiyashi. "Why do you care where I've been? You have never had any interest in me." Said Hinata. "I care because if you are going to be the next heir to the clan then I." "Heir to the clan? Since when have I been the heir to this? Better yet, when have I ever been anything to anybody in this clan?" she said with anger in voice. "You are the clan heir, Hinata, and as clan heir you represent the future of this clan," he yelled. Hinata scoffed and said, "The future of this clan? Believe me, father, I know what the future is. Because my eyes have seen the truth of this clan. You are all nothing but selfish, power-hungry assholes. I can't even begin to see what it was that mother ever saw in you. How dare you spia? How dare me, how dare you?" she said while flaring some demon chakra. Hiyashi felt the flare of chakra and recognized it. He activated his Byakugan and saw a purple energy surrounding Hinata. "That chakra," thought Hiyashi. "I am leaving. Don't you dare walk out on me," he commanded. Hinata just ignored what he said and kept walking towards the door. "Hinata, if you walk out of this room you walk out of your clan and your family," he screamed at the top of his lungs. And Hinata stopped at what he just said. Then Hiyashi suddenly felt the temperature of the room drop by about 10 degrees. Then Hinata turned around and looked at Hiyashi with her eyes glowing a lavender purple and an angry look and said, "Family? Since when the fuck did I ever have a family? For as long as I can remember you have been a giant fucking asshole. Hanabi has been a selfish, spoiled brat. Real families are kind and support you. All this family and clan has ever done to me was hurt, insult and degrade me. So fuck you, fuck this clan, and fuck being part of it. From this moment on I denounce the Hyuga name," she said while storming out of the room. Hiyashi watched her daughter leave the room and yelled, "Guards, stop her now," he said in anger. Then two Hyuga shunned into the room and rushed Hinata. The guard on the left tried to palm strike her in the chest, but Hinata caught his wrist and started to crush it in her hand. The guard on the right saw an opening and punch at her stomach. Hinata saw this and with her other hand caught his wrist. Then she twisted around with both of the guard's arms above her head and then with all of might sent both men flying through the air and barreling toward Hiyashi. But Hiyashi saw this coming and jumped out of the way and landed in front of Hinata. "You worthless little bitch. Fine, I will take care of you myself," seethed Hiyashi in rage. Then he dashed forward and tried to palm strike his daughter in the heart. Hinata deflected his attacks, and he just kept pressing the attack. He tried to sweep kick her, but she just jumped out of the way. Then Hiyashi started to form hand seals and said, "Hyuga style. Air palms." He shot his hands forward and several big gusts of wind flew out towards Hinata. Hinata and started to do a Hyuga signature jutsu. "Rotation," shouted Hinata, and an orb of chakra deflected all of the airstrikes. Hiyashi was shocked that his daughter had learned that technique. He focused and charged in his daughter and tried to perform the ultimate technique. 8 trigrams, 2 palm, 4 palm, 8 palm, 16 palm, 32 palm, 64 palm, and miraculously the technique hit. Hinata lied on the floor unmoving. Hiyashi smirked victoriously, but Hinata flared her chakra and forcibly reopened her tenketsu points. And then she jumped back to her feet and just glared daggers at Hiyashi. The man was awestruck that Hinata was able to shake off the attack like nothing. Then she looked at him and said, "As fun as this is, I think it's time that I ended this now," she said in a confident and stern voice. She started to quickly make hand signs, and as she did, her body was being surrounded demonic purple energy. She finished look Hiyashi and said, "Demon art. Unbearable pleasures." Then all of a sudden, Hiyashi saw the world around him fade away and be replaced by something new. He saw that he was in a chamber filled with lavish silk curtain and beautiful tapestries, soft and thick rugs, and a big king-sized bed. Hiyashi suspected that this was a genjutsu and tried to dispel it, but every time he tried he failed. Then Hiyashi tried using his Byakugan to see through the illusion. But when he tried, all that his Byakugan saw was a hazy cloud of bright light. Then Hiyashi heard something behind him. He turned around expecting an attack, but instead what he saw shocked him to no end. Standing in front of him was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She had long black hair tied up in a bun, wearing gold jewelry, and a concubine outfit that did nothing to hide her naked form. "Hello my lord, you look exhausted, why not let me take of you?" said the woman with lust in her voice. She walked up to Hiyashi, grabbed his hands and led him over the bed. Hiyashi wanted to resist and pull away from her. But the more he tried, the more he wanted to be with her. When they got over to the bed, the woman pushed Hiyashi down on the bed and started to give him a why little lap dance. 2 minutes into the dance, the lady sits on Hiyashi's lap, wrapped one arm around his neck and the other ran down his chest. Then she leaned close and whispered in his ear, "Now my lord, get ready to feel unbearable pleasures." Then the nails on the woman's fingers turned into 2-inch-long claws and shoved them into Hiyashi's abdomen. Hiyashi yelled in pain while looking down at the hand in his gut in shock. Then he looked up at the woman and was horrified at what he saw. The woman had sickly yellow eyes, razor-sharp teeth, her tongue grew in length like a snake. The woman continued to dig her hand into Hiyashi's stomach and was working her way up to her chest. Hiyashi tried to fight this woman off but was too overcome by pain to do anything but watch. Then the woman started to work her hands up into Hiyashi's chest. Hiyashi felt the woman's hand grip his heart. Then the woman ripped Hiyashi's heart right out of his chest. Real world. Hiyashi was writhing on the floor in pain. Hinata was standing over him pumping more chakra into the jutsu. She looked down at him and gave a confident and superior smirk. Then she turned around and walked out of the room. She walked out of the Hyuga compound with anger and rage. "Very nicely handled, Hinata," said Lilith enthusiastically. "Thank you, mistress," Hinata said with happiness in her voice. "Personally, I would have just killed him. One day I will kill him, but not just yet, there are still things that need to be done." Hinata continued to walk down the street heading for the one place in the world where she felt happy. Naruto's apartment. Naruto sitting in his apartment practicing his chakra control exercise by meditating on the ceiling, when he heard a knock on the door. He opened his eyes and stopped his flow of chakra and fell back down to the floor. He went over to the door and opened it to see Hinata. "Hey Hinata, I thought you had a clan meeting with your father?" he said in confusion. "As of today I don't have a father. Or a clan," she said with disgust in her voice. "What are you talking about? I denounced the Hyuga name and left the clan. I just couldn't take it anymore. That man just makes me so angry." Naruto looked at her and saw the anger in her eyes and understood what she was feeling. "You know that you are always welcome to stay with me," he said. Hinata smiled and went up to Naruto and hugged him. Thank you Naruto, I don't know what I would do without you. Naruto returned the hug with just as much love. Then he looked at Hinata and said, you know that this will make you a big target for you clan, right? Good, let them come. I will send all of them bag in pieces, she shouted. Naruto smirked at the comment and remembered, come inside, I have some news, he said with a bit of excitement. Hinata came inside and the two of them walked into his bedroom. What the news? She asked. Actually, this news involves our masters as well. Hinata understood what he was saying. The two of them sat down on the ground facing each other in a meditative position and closed their eyes in concentration. Mindscape. Naruto and Hinata opened their eyes and saw that they were in the village square of a horror movie version of the Hidden Leaf Village. The sky bleak and colorless, and there were dead bodies littering the streets. Many of them were missing their head or some other body part. There were blood stains on the walls of the building. Some of the buildings were on fire or were lying in a pile of rubble. Truly a beautiful sight, isn't it? Said a female voice. Indeed it is, said a deep male voice. Naruto and Hinata turned around and saw Lilith in her usual sultry and revealing outfit of see-through lingerie. However, Kyuubi had changes into his human form. He was wearing a crimson kimono with orange flame designs on it. Master, mistress, said both Naruto and Hinata as they bowed to the two demon. Rise children, we have much to discuss, said Kyuubi with a slight eagerness in his voice. Yes, what exactly is this exciting new fuzz face? Said Lilith with an amused smile on her face. Kyuubi an annoyed growl but continued, me and Naruto have been making some headway on the Thunder God Jutsu. Then Kyuubi waved his hands in the air, and then the Jutsu seal design appeared in the air. This is what the original looked like, said Kyuubi, but by modifying a few of marking with demonic seals we were able to increase its power. Said Naruto, but will it work to fit our need? Asked Lilith. Not yet, we still need to make more modifications. Care to join us ladies? Said Naruto. All four of them spent the next 12 hours in their joint mindscape, which in the real world is only 6 hours, working on the seal. I think that we're making some serious headway, said Naruto, but the seals are still too unstable to suit our needs, said Hinata with a small hint of concern in her voice. Don't worry, we still need to do some tweaking and it should work, said Kyuubi. Why don't we stop for the day and resume tomorrow? Said Lilith. Then the four of them stopped what they were doing and then the world around them started to fade. Real world. Naruto and Hinata opened their eyes and see that they are back in his apartment. They both got off of the floor and headed for the kitchen to have dinner. And when they got their food and sat down and started eating. So what do you think is wrong with the seal? Asked Hinata. I think that the problem is that the seal is only a one-way deal and it's a you go where the seal goes kind of deal, so we are going to have to change that it takes us where we want to go, and so it takes us back, said Naruto. Well, our masters and certain human were able to do it, so it can't be impossible, she said. Now we need to find the right seal configuration. That's going to take a lot of time and energy to do. Don't worry Naruto, I know that we can get it. Naruto smiled at her and said, thanks Hinata. Come on, let's go to bed, we have a long day ahead of us. They got up from the table, cleaned up, and then they both got undressed and climbed into bed. Hyuga Infirmary. We see that Hiyashi Hyuga is in a hospital bed and is just walking up from the tiring effects of the jutsu that his daughter used on him. He heard the door opening and saw that the Hyuga doctor come in with two people. The first was his daughter Hanabi, who came rushing up to him with a worried expression on her face. The other man that walked in was one of the Hyuga elders. He looked at Hiyashi and asked, what happened, who put you here? Hinata, she used some kind of genjutsu on me. Why would sister do this? Asked Hanabi. Hiyashi looked at his daughter with anger and said, as of this moment you do not have a sister. As of today Hinata is now an enemy to the Hyuga clan.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.